The pleasure that I want to invite the chairperson of the Center, CMD, Center for Multi-Party Democracy Kenya, the person who's made this possible today, so that he can give his remarks, given that there is somewhere where he needs to be urgently subsequent to this event. Bwana Honorable His Excellency Kiraitu Murungi. Thank you. Makofi ya chair, tafadhali.
Asante sana wakili. We don't have to struggle too much about excellencies, honorable, what. Just call me Kiraitu, and that's good enough. I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very happy to be with you today and seeing some old friends. Our vice chair is here, Senator Siengo. A very old friend, Jerry Kabeberi, who actually introduced me to this struggle. I met her, that time she was working for an insurance company, way back in the 70s. And she's the only woman who earned some money. So, she paid fees for Koiwa Mwere when he had been detained without trial, not during Moi's time, during Kenyatta's time, the Kenyatta one. And we tried to find out whether she was his girlfriend, but she said she didn't know him. But she felt she had to support him. Can we appreciate her? So allow me to read a short speech which I made. Family of the late Raila Odinga, seen led by Honorable Winnie Odinga, our vice chair, Senator Siengo, CMD, board members and staff who have put all this together. Allow me to call you all fellow lovers of democracy. See my old friend Honorable Yeremia Kioni is among you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the chairman of the CMD. I think Mako has read the list of those who went ahead of me. So, but I'm currently the chair. And at CMD, we were formed in early 20s, early 2000 and something, with the sole purpose of protecting multi-party democracy in the country. Protecting it, and we do it in two ways: strengthening the capacity of various political parties, and secondly, trying to promote multi-party cooperation in key areas affecting our nation. So we promote the dialogue. You saw us with the PDF, the People's Dialogue Forum, which we had at Uhuru Park with about 3,000 people, and we do it continuously because we don't want the fires of democracy, to die in this country. So, as chair of Center for Multi-Party Democracy, it's my singular honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to this historic occasion where we are celebrating the International Human Rights Day under the theme Human Rights, Our Everyday Essentials, by celebrating and honoring the father of multi-party democracy in Kenya, the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I've been requested to make a few remarks on Raila the enigma. And before I do so, this young man, from Chetty, we used to have problems with him when I was a member of parliament, because he used to say that wananchi don't love us. And we asked him why. He says, no, they're just following you the way I used to follow a carcass. soon to fries, love the dead animal, or they are just following the food. Yeah, so when I came here today, I remember that. So it's not easy for me to talk about Raila as an enigma, because an enigma is a person who is mysterious, a person who is difficult to understand, and a person who is impossible to fully explain. So how am I supposed to talk about that? I think one of the people, a philosopher who was inspired revolutionaries and reformers for centuries, is Karl Marx. But I think those who have read closely about Karl Marx, you know, his funeral is the funeral of Karl Marx was attended by only 11 people. And at that time, you know, it was like he had lost, the spark, the fire, you know, that time. And he stood the risk of even being forgotten. But if you compare him with Raila Odinga, the funeral of Raila Odinga was attended by hundreds of thousands, you know, of Kenyans. And you saw what happened at Kango, Jaramogi, making a pilgrimage. A lot of people from all walks of life showed up there. We in CMD were not able to deliver any bulls to Kango Kanjaramogi to show our respect, but we thought we could do this forum as our own way of delivering our bulls for Raila. A lot of things have been said and written about Raila, especially after his death, and I believe a lot more is going to be said. And there will be a debate about Raila and what he stood for, what he said, for many decades to come. I think it could be true to say Raila has been at the center of every political struggle in this country from 1980s until the time of his death. And no Kenyan has made greater personal sacrifices for democracy and freedom in this country more than the late Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. I think this is a fact of history. You might like him or you might dislike him, but you can't change that fact. It is true. Personally, I met Raila in Shimoratewa prison way back in 1984. He had been detained without trial for his alleged participation in planning the aborted coup of 1982. I can give you the inner story. For you to be taken to court for treason, then Kioni, you know, you require corroboration from an independent witness. So Raila could not be taken to court because there was no independent witness. Anybody who would have been caught was a person who would either be implicated or not. So there are no evidence to take Raila to court, or even to charge him with treason. So they took a shortcut of detaining him without trial. And those days, even lawyers were not around to see detained people, although there were clear rights in the Constitution. So we had to take the Attorney General to court for us to get an order to be around to go and see Raila in Shimoratewa prison, and not know where we were being taken. We were put in a chopper and through from Wilson Airport, wakapigam around, but finally they took us to Shimoratewa, And where I found Raila, and staged a hunger strike in prison. He had not eaten for a number of days. And he was saying, you'd rather die rather than eat this, this food they had. They were giving terrible food. So I remember it was my first time to meet him, and we had quite an argument. And I was telling him, if you die, what do you think Moi would think? Wouldn't Moi be celebrating that you are dead? So, so we convinced him to eat, survive, so that he can live and fight Moi, another day. So the officer in charge, we asked to see the food he was eating. So they brought eggs, and rice, and then so we asked Raila, is this the food you have refused to eat? So Raila said no. So then we said, okay, from now on let him be given this food because you have no problem with it. Because the next time we trying to see him, we were not there, then taking him to Naivasha. So that's how we got to know Raila. And those days, because they had changed the constitution in 1982 to make Kano the only role-of party in the country, and making opposition, any form of opposition, illegal. So there was no other way of removing Moi and Kano from power. So it was legitimate to overthrow him through the force of arms. And for us those days, revolution was acceptable. And in fact, it was the only way of removing live presidents, from power. And we were inspired by other revolutions of the world, Fidel Castro in Cuba. We can read books from Franz Fanon, Che Guevara, all those people. And Raila really liked Fidel Castro. That is why his son was called Fidel. And then near South Africa, near home South Africa, there was Winnie Mandela. That is why this lady is called Winnie. She was called Winnie Mandela. She was called Winnie after Winnie Mandela, so she was a namesake. And even my own children, my son is called Fanon, and my daughter is also called Winnie, after Winnie Mandela. Yeah, so we thought we would remove Moi through a revolution. And that was those like Raila, Koigi, and the others who were trying to do, those days. And then there were very many underground movements, with all manner of names. Until we met a priest in Vika, a German priest. He was called Father Max Stata. He had come from Latin America. And he had seen a lot of coups, the military in that country. And he was telling us the coups and the military takeovers will not be the right way to go. Because it's okay, Moi can be removed through the force of arms. But when the military get in, how are you going to remove them, from power? So a military regime can only be removed through another military coup, isn't it? Even a revolutionary government, once in power, can also be removed only through another revolutionary government. And this would cause a cycle of bloodshed. And Africa will be forever in chaos, anarchy, because of this manner. And that is why the the struggle for multi-party democracy became important because at least there will be a limitation of the terms of the rulers, and there will be a democratic way of removing them. You don't like them, you can remove them through the ballot box and all that. So this struggle to change Section 2A, so that we can return the country back to multipartyism, was informed by our understanding that there's a futility in trying to change through armed struggle. And Raila again became the champion of fighting for this democratic space, for the second liberation. We were younger people, Raila was a few years older, but he was the leader of the young Turks. And we did not have sufficient contact with the people or politics, so we had to work with all the people who were there then, the veterans, Jaramogi himself, Maside Muliro, and others.